Hi everyone, and welcome to a lesson in Money First Aid, how to improve financial well-being at your work. I'm Rachel and I'm delighted to be your host for today's session. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Financial well-being is increasingly being recognised as critical to both employee satisfaction and business success. But let's be honest, it is not always the easiest topic to address at work. That's why we've teamed up with someone who is pioneering change in this space. Stacey Lowman, co-founder of Money First Aid. Stacey brings a wealth of experience, and today she will be sharing how you can support your teams with practical, human-centered approaches to money challenges. So before we dive in, I'll just give you a really quick outline of how today's session will run. So first off, we're going to explore why financial well-being matters. Then we'll look at how financial stress affects people, how it affects businesses, and then we'll share with you what you can actually do to make a meaningful difference. And we'll finish off with a Q&A, and for everyone who makes it to the end, there's a little surprise. So first, let's meet Stacey. So Stacey, would you mind just giving us a quick intro into who you are and what inspired you to create Money First Aid?
Thanks, Rachel. That was such a lovely introduction. And hello, everybody. It's really nice to be here with the Plain Saver community. I'm Stacey. I joined financial services in 2008, working in Canary Wharf, like the same weekend that all of these banks collapsed in the credit crisis. So it was an interesting start into the industry and just a real kind of lesson for me that never left about how uncertain and unpredictable all sorts of finances can be in our lives. So I worked in investment banking and asset management for 10 years, and then I became a financial coach working with individuals one-on-one on how to manage their money in a way that was aligned to their values and their lifestyle goals. And then for the last 5 years, I've been in financial well-being in the workplace. So looking specifically at the way our personal finances impact who we are at work, how we make decisions around our career, and how we can perform at work, and how that impacts our employers and the organizations we work for. And that's where Money First Aid came about, really, like looking at kind of this, like the last few years and how difficult the cost of living has been, and higher bills and household expenses, and higher costs for businesses too, and what meaningful and impactful support is out there for individuals to tackle their finances.
Thank you, Stacey. That was a great introduction. So let's kick it off by just laying a bit of a foundation here. So why does financial well-being deserve a seat at the same table as mental and physical well-being?
Yeah, it's a good question. And like we've seen over the last decade or so, this kind of increase of understanding and tackling of the impact of mental health in the workplace, kind of financial well-being is now in the spotlight, which is really great to see. And all of the research suggests that those two things are really inextricably linked. And Money and Mental Health Policy Institute do some great work in this space. But looking at the way kind of being in a financially stressful situation impacts our mental health and also our physical health, like not being able to sleep, making changes to our diet, etc. But also, if you have mental health issues of any kind, just how much harder that makes managing our money, and also how inaccessible financial services can sometimes be if you have specific needs of any kind, including mental health and physical health challenges. So they really are all interconnected, and it can make it harder trying to address all of them at the same time, but it kind of needs to happen. So it's about how we can not only introduce financial well-being in the workplace, but also integrate those solutions, or at least align them to what we're doing in the mental health and physical health space too.
Sure. And the term financial well-being, I think, is something, especially for people like ourselves, we probably take it for granted. We see it, we know exactly what it is, right? But what does it mean, in your opinion, to be financially well, to have a good level of financial well-being? What does that even really mean?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Because we use the term in so many ways, and it's like
Yeah,
in the same way as like, oh, I want to be financially free, I want to
yeah,
have financial independence, I want to be financially
yes.
resilient. It's like all of those things sounds really aspirational, but
Mm,
how do I know if I'm on the path to achieving them? So I really like the definition. I think it's by the Consumer Protection Bureau. It's a definition from the United States, but Money Helper also has a good one. But it's wanting to feel, or financial well-being is wanting to feel secure and having freedom of choice, both in the present and in the future.
yeah.
And I really love that definition because you can break it
Mm,
down into 4 quadrants, right? And we all
yeah,
love a framework. So it's like, okay, where is the source of my financial stress? Is it feeling secure in the present, like getting through the month to month budget, being able to pay all the bills this month? Or is it feeling secure in the future? So if me or my partner was to lose our job, or if there was a tree was to fall on our car, like, am I prepared for those situations that could occur in the future?
yeah,
Or it's having freedom of choice in the present. So am I able to live a lifestyle month on month that, brings me joy, that allows me to take care of my mental health and physical health? And having freedom of choice in the future. So, if I wanted to go and take this amazing holiday, or go back to school and do this course, or start a new hobby, like whatever it might be, like, am I putting money aside to be able to afford to do that?
yeah,
So I really like that definition, and like which quadrant is keeping you up at night, or which one is like you want to be able to achieve but you're not quite there.
yeah,
That can like indicate to us the steps that we need to take in that
yeah,
specific area to improve our financial wellness.
yeah. Thank you. That's a really good way to summarize it. So we know from working in the space that we work in, the stats say that nearly 40% of adults have £1,000 or less in savings, and 16% of UK adults have no savings at all. That lack of financial buffer, especially in the current cost of living climate, has got some serious implications for resilience, productivity, and even presenteeism at work.
Mm-hmm.
So if we think about that, now that we understand some of what the problem is, how does that show up in the workplace? So, Stacey, how does financial stress affect employees on a day-to-day level? And what are those ripple effects that us as employers or as leaders, what should we look out for? What should we be aware of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good question. And we've got like a section in the course of signs of money worries, which you'll
Yes,
know all about, Rachel.
I do.
But we've like broken it down there into kind of 4 areas, I think, like behavioral, emotional, mental, and physical.
Mhm.
No, verbal and physical, sorry. So behaviorally, um, typically we think of people being less productive. So like maybe not meeting deadlines, or
Yeah.
not delivering work to the same level or in the same way that they perhaps you might be used to, or like withdrawing themselves socially. So if like you have like a regular social event, or you do kind of collections for birthdays, perhaps people are like withdrawing from those sorts of
Mm.
activities. Emotionally, you might see signs of like irritability, or like avoidance, or like being more reserved than usual. Verbally, people might be, as I'm sure lots of us are doing at the moment, like complaining about
Yeah.
bills, or
Yeah.
asking to borrow money, or they might have asked for a raise for the first time. Or talking about how cash might be difficult at home, or how it's like a source of like conflict in different relationships.
Mm.
um or you might also see if you're in a position at work, not everybody would be, but where you have access to certain HR information, you might be drawing down more on earned wage access, if you offer that, or opting out of pension contributions,
Yeah, that's a big one.
hopefully engaging more in like other financial well-being benefits that you have. But a change in behavior around how they're engaging in benefits and packages.
Mm.
So there are lots of signs, and even physically, like they might be looking more tired, or they might have changed their exercise routine or their eating routine, which might affect their kind of physical appearance too. But lots of different ways, and it's super difficult, right? Because also a lot of those behaviors can be signs of lots of other things unrelated to money.
Exactly.
So it's very difficult to know, and it like context matters, and your like relationship with them, and how you know them before some of these signs come up all have an impact. But those are kind of some of the signs maybe to look out for.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you say, but when I was doing the course myself, there was some things on there that I probably wouldn't have thought to look out for. It's a pretty vast list, but I think one of the things that stands out, or that did stand out for me, was the silence. So people's unwillingness to, to speak about it,
Mm-hmm.
and how important it is for us as employers, or for us as leaders, to create that safe space for people to feel like they can have that conversation, because there's such a taboo around it. Talking about money, people don't want to do it, do they?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and that's an interesting one actually, because a lot of the sources of financial stress that we cover in the course are like life events. And
Yeah.
some of these life events we might talk about, like how, I don't know, how losing a partner or going through a separation or
Mm.
trying for a baby. We might talk about those things. All of those things have a huge impact on our financial situation.
Yeah.
And the money element of that is often the bit
Mm.
that's not mentioned. So sometimes it might be appropriate, and like managers and money first aiders and wellbeing champions will hopefully be able to know in the moment whether to say, like, I imagine that impacts like your finances. Is that causing you money
Yeah.
stress?
Yeah.
Um, because it's often the part of a bigger event that's really difficult to talk about.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, so if we think more practically now, what can we actually do to support our team? So we're talking about creating that culture where it's safe to speak about money. But how, as employers, do we do that in reality, especially in a situation where maybe budgets might be tight, but you know that something has to be done?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. So perhaps start by looking at what you're already doing. So if you've already got really successful structures and like campaigns or awareness things happening in the physical health and mental health space, for example, are
Mm.
there any opportunities there where you can add a financial health element? If you have like an employee resource group or kind of well-being committees and meetings, or even in team individual one-to-ones, like adding like a financial health check-in, or
Yeah.
like regular like appraisal or check-in one-to-ones with your team, like just starting to introduce the topic a bit more. Um, if you already have benefits out there that have an element of financial well-being, like a
Hmm.
discounts platform, or earned wage access, or anything that you're already offering, like reminding people that they're available and how they can support um, financial well-being. So just, yeah, kind of repositioning what you already have through the financial well-being lens. And then, yeah, identifying places that you can bring up the conversation, maybe having like anonymous case studies, or
Yeah.
leaders or wellbeing champions, mental health first aiders who are willing to share stories,
Mm.
can be really helpful. And that's not only sharing difficult financial times, but also like celebrating wins. Like I worked with one organization when the cost of living crisis was just, kicking off a couple of years ago. They had like a a spreadsheet where people could all access, and they just added their own like financial tips on there.
Oh, wow.
Because we're all really
I like
good with
that.
money in some ways. Like we all have
Yeah.
like tips and things. Or if someone's like used like a workplace benefit that's helped them financially, like just adding it to there. So
Yeah.
that also builds people's confidence that like, oh, I can contribute something positive. I'm not just kind
Yeah.
of going because I need support. Like we'll all have good financial tips that we can share with each other. Yeah, and then like, you know, posters and things like that. Individuals who are available for support, DE&I or anybody in those sorts
Yeah.
of roles, like sharing like this is how I can help with financial well-being too. Yeah, can all be really helpful. And then, you know, to identify gaps that you might want to fill, like finding opportunities where you can listen to what employees are struggling with. So anonymous surveys, like pulse surveys, if you ask like for questionnaires about anything else at any other time of the year, adding a financial wellbeing element to that. However difficult the cost of living crisis is, and awful April, which is a lot of our bills going up this month, like it
Yes.
is also an opportune time to kind of raise the
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah. And so the interesting thing that I picked out there was with that spreadsheet, it's peer to peer. And you can never underestimate the value of that, can you? So like with the course that you guys offer, that's upskilling the people that you already have
Mhm.
and potentially people who are more likely to have conversations day to day than perhaps some leaders might. Yeah. Yeah. I imagine
Absolutely.
that's quite powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's certainly the feedback that we've heard. Because money is a taboo topic, and sometimes you don't want to talk to your manager about it.
Yeah.
A lot of people experiencing financial struggles may also think that their only option is to go and get a higher salary elsewhere. So
Yes. Yeah.
that's another reason that might stop them talking to their manager, or they don't want their manager to think they're irresponsible or it's their fault or anything like that. So they might be more comfortable talking to a peer or someone in the organization that's far removed from their specific roles and
Yeah.
responsibilities. Um, but sometimes amongst peers, you know, we do talk about money and that conversation is being had already. And if you're the one being spoken to, so someone's sharing a money stress with you,
Mm.
no, it can be you want to help, and but you might just not feel resourced to know how to help.
Exactly. Yeah.
So giving individuals like who need support a safe space to go to, but also the people who want to be in that position where they're providing support, the resources and confidence to know that they can, you know, offer something useful in that
Yeah.
conversation as well.
Yeah. And that's it. I think so. I mean, there's a couple of team members here that have done the course, and I think we've all said the same thing. It is about having that confidence to have the conversation. So whilst, we're not financial advisors, that's not what we're here to do, but we all now feel capable of responding to somebody in what we feel is the right way if they were to, approach this subject with us. So yeah, I think for anybody who was looking for a recommendation, there you go, I've just given you one.
Thank you.
That's all right. So yeah, I mean, Plain Saver, what we do, just to give you the other side of the coin, is that we work with employers across the UK and we offer payroll savings, and it's simple, it's automated, and that's all about building financial resilience. So similar to a pension, it's kind of like a set and forget situation. And month after month, whether people decide to save £10 a month or £200 a month or whatever, it's about building up that savings habit and getting people to a point where they are financially resilient, which kind of loops back to when we were talking about the meaning of financial well-being. It's that ability to withstand a life event without your finances taking a nosedive.
Mhm.
So one of the really interesting things that we've seen over the last 12 months, despite what's been going on, despite the economy and everything else that seems set against us, we've actually seen that our payroll savers are saving 34% more than our direct debit savers. So when we see an impact like that, obviously we get quite excited about it. You guys must surely see some pretty good stuff coming off the back of the money first aid. So I guess my question is, what kind of impact have you seen in workplaces that's really given you that, oh, that's nice, that wow factor?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's an incredible statistic. And
Yeah,
I think like sharing the impact like that will really help like other employees be like, oh, that's cool. Like I want to be a part of
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and the money first aid stories, we've just passed our first year birthday, so we've just
Happy
collected data from
birthday.
our thank you. Yay, we made it. Um, we've just collected data from money first aiders who have been trained for a little bit.
Yeah,
And we're kind of going through all of that now to like deliver our first impact support. But some of the individual stories are really amazing because they're one-on-one conversations money first aiders are having, protecting like the confidentiality of people they're
yeah,
speaking to. The stories tend to be like very personal, but also very relatable. So like individuals who were worried about going on paternity leave and now like they've got the support, they understand what kind of childcare support they're eligible for, they've
yeah,
like they know where to go to put a budget together for like their paternity period, so they know that they can afford that break from work, they like know where to go to understand like what their rights are around paternity and things like that. And lots of other like individual stories. The top 10 kind of conversations or financial topics people have come to us with are like debt, living paycheck to paycheck, money and mental health. Then the others are things like bereavement, and having a financial conversation around like losing like a loved one and also a stream of income into the
yeah,
household,
yeah,
and divorce and separation and gambling, so and financial scams. So people being able to have that conversation, and then the money first aid is saying to us, this is where we've signposted people to for support.
yeah,
It's been really, really helpful. Um, but also it's things like not only the impact of what the money first aiders are having it in their organization, but also like a better understanding of what the financial needs are and what the barriers are for employees seeking financial support,
yeah,
which is really useful for the organization. So, like an example being debt being the most common financial stress for people at the
yeah,
moment. And, them knowing most organizations are signposting to fantastic organizations like Step Change, like
yeah,
National Deadline, like Citizens Advice. But what the money first aiders are being told is it's like they know what the number is, but it's like making the call is really difficult,
yes,
because they don't know what to expect and they're like
yeah,
talking to somebody about their debts for the first time. So there's like there's a really good video now that we've added into the course of debt advisors who are on the other end of the line, who are like sharing like, this is who I am, this is how I can help you, these are the stories I hear, this is what to expect when you make that phone call. So
mm,
it's being able to share that with somebody as well as the number to call, like this is what you can expect when you make that call
yeah,
and this is how you can prepare for it, is really amazing. So it's like the impact of being better able to understand what people really need to make progress with their financial stress is also been really useful.
yeah, I bet. Thank you for that. So we're now going to move on to some Q&A. So anyone who would like to ask a question, whether that be of Stacey, whether that be of myself, feel free to pop that into the chat. We do have a moderator, so I will await further instruction on that one. I really hope that everyone can not hear the traffic through my microphone, because today it's like the M1 out here. We've got lorries, we've got police, ambulance. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully we can't hear it.
I can't hear it.
Do we have any questions coming through?
Oh, it looks like you've got a question in the Q&A box.
Okay, okay.
Oh, how do we do
Okay. Okay, good question. So in your experience, Stacey, what kind of financial support do employees usually value?
that? Really, really good question. People who have actually faced like a real financial stress, what they say has been most helpful is just having that place that they can go and have that conversation. So knowing that there's somewhere they're in the organization they can go just to talk and share
Yeah.
it, has been what they have valued the most. And then it has been kind of support that feels really tailored to them.
Mm.
So that's like really like specific and aligned to what their financial needs are. So we have seen, full transparency. I've sometimes seen like resistance to doing webinars and things like that, especially on the topic of budgeting, which I
Yeah.
kind of get because I think what we recognize as money first aiders is, people who need financial well-being support. It's not necessarily like they're not in the situation they're in. They're not facing financial stress because they lack financial literacy or they need to budget because there's some sort of thing like it's their fault, like
Yeah.
intertwined in that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's actually like, oh, you're facing this specific life event. This is how this particular benefit can really help you. So, if it's workplace savings, for example, if you're able to talk about that, like, people tend to use this to build emergency savings for when these types of things occur. And it's something that's really specific to them, like, oh, I don't know, when there was a flood in our area, or to help with going on paternity leave, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, like being able to give really specific examples of how those savings can be useful.
Mm.
um or being able to show, like, highlight certain things on a discounts and rewards platform, like, oh, one employee saved this much on their groceries or whatever it might be. So being able to tailor it really specifically. And then the money first aiders have like 50 plus resources in the course, like all categorized by specific life events.
Yes.
So you can share something that's super specific to what that person is facing.
Mm.
That makes them feel like seen and heard and understood and valued as an individual. So that has also been what people have tended to value. Yeah.
Thank you. Next one. Is financial coaching realistic for small businesses? I think we're referring to the course itself. So is it an option for smaller businesses?
Yeah, well, we think so. So a money first aider isn't a financial coach. That's a different type of training. But what the money first aider is somebody who's able to recognize the signs of financial stress and understand like key life events and things that people can go through that impact their finances, how to have a compassionate conversation about that with somebody
Mm.
going through it, and where to signpost and resource them for financial support. A financial coach is able to perhaps guide and walk alongside someone going through that, and it's a bit different.
Mm.
And the course to become a money first aider is £99. So it's affordable for smaller businesses.
Yeah.
We have had everything from one individual in an organization of 5 becoming a money first aider to, 300 in an organization of tens of thousands,
Yeah.
being trained. So we have tried to make the solution kind of scalable and relevant for an organization of any size in the UK. But we like appreciate that also is a very human solution, and it works alongside more kind of scalable across the board financial benefits that you might have, like workplace savings.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one piece of the financial well-being puzzle that organizations might offer.
For sure. We've got another one here. What's the best way to open up conversations about money at work? I feel like buy the course, but I'm kidding. Stacey will answer that.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different ways to approach it. Some that I can think of off the top of my head now. Now is a great time because of awful April and like household bills going up.
Yeah.
A lot of us are feeling that it's a common topic, so we can use that as like an entry point. So if there's something happening in the kind of economy that we can use to instigate conversations, great. We can also put a really positive lens on it. So like sharing positive stories of, like that, here's how to be good with money, like contribute your ideas too. Or we can look at existing campaigns and awareness days, etc., that are happening throughout the year. So on the Money First Aid website, we have a financial wellbeing calendar with like campaigns and awareness days throughout 2025 that you can use as an opportunity to springboard the financial wellbeing conversation. And then it can also be like specific to the organization. So if there's a specific time of year that you do pay reviews or you do bonuses or you have appraisals or you have a schedule of like when you have team meetings or DE&I things, like whatever you've already got in your own organization's calendar, like where can we bring in a financial well-being element here?
Yeah.
And obviously, like, it can come from the top down. Like Money First Aid is kind of seen as a bottom-up solution and like peer-to-peer. But like culturally, of course, the leaders have a huge impact. So if you can kind of point to a leader of some kind in the organization who's going to be a financial well-being champion or really going to role model like the importance of financial well-being in the workplace, then that can have a huge impact as well.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that, especially like for us as well, for what, when we're trying to work with an employer to implement people saving through the pay, it's great to get it at all levels. We rely on word of mouth and a mixture of that and like events, etc. But you definitely need that buy-in from the top. And it's very obvious. I don't know what you found in your experience, Stacey, but it's very, very obvious to us when you come across an employer who is really invested in financial well-being and not just trying to tick a box. There's lots of solutions out there that probably cost a lot of money, but if you want to tick a box, you can tick that box with that. But yeah, for us, it's more about finding businesses who align with what we're trying to achieve. I imagine you have some similar experiences like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have definitely seen statistics on, uptake of benefits or like engagement in financial well-being activities and stuff is really correlated to how engaged the leader is. Like when you look at organizations who have multiple sites for various reasons around the country, like, and the engagement levels when you have a really like invested leader, like do go up on those sites or in those areas. And it also helps to really like break down another unhelpful taboo around money, is that financial stress impacts people on lower salaries more than on higher salaries, or people on higher salaries or in senior positions are somehow immune. And that's just not true. So being able to like break down that kind of sense of shame around, oh, I shouldn't need to engage in financial well-being stuff at work because I'm on a good salary, is unhelpful for everybody. And just like not true. And also it's like nobody's fault, and it's can be like very irrespective of how much you earn. So getting people in more senior positions also engaged can be really helpful in that way.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, we've got another one here. What's something you think a lot of HR teams or leaders are missing when it comes to financial well-being? And you can't say the money first aid course, and I can't say plane saver, so something else.
Really, really good question. Okay, how am I going to tackle this one? Maybe the feedback loop from employees of like if it's really helpful.
Yeah.
So kind of looking at what you've already got, or like if you were to say to somebody external, like this is what we do in terms of financial well-being, asking the employees like this is what we do in terms of financial well-being, like are you engaging with it? If you are engaging with it, what's been your experience? If you're not engaging with it, why aren't you engaging with it? How could we position it differently? Or what's missing? Even like, and sometimes like with specifically like the tech solutions, you'll have like the data around those engagement levels. But if it's really useful or not, like have you ever like sat with an employee and like looked at them engage with it? So like like when they go on the intranet or when they go on the app, like where is the blocker that's like stopping them going any further, or what is it that they're really using it for? And like the things that we have found that employees and individuals like value and remember the most is really specific stuff. So like one organization like had an individual employee, who was trying to get out of a difficult relationship, and her finances were being controlled by her partner. And they offered loads of financial wellbeing stuff. But the thing that was most useful for her is they paid for her to stay in a hotel with her kids for a couple of nights to give her that space to make a plan to get out of that situation.
Wow.
So it's like, I think, and perhaps she will be loyal to that organization forever because of that experience. But really like, doing what you can to get that feedback loop and really understanding what employees need, because us providers are so good at like, packaging it up and presenting it and saying, this is perfect for your financial well-being solution. But getting your employees' voice is really important.
Agreed. Okay. And the next one, are there problems that are more common than others? So I'm going to assume that means money problems.
Yeah. There are a lot, and we cover 12 or more in the course, but there are some that are really growing. So a lot of these things are life events that come out of nowhere, right? And ultimately they're difficult for our finances because perhaps we don't have the savings buffer or the resilience, like the stats you shared at the start, for when those things occur. But also a lot of these life events that we go through are the first time that we're going through them. And so we won't, like, it will be new to us, even if we have savings or we're on top of our debts or we're contributing to the pension, whatever it might be the first time that you've been the victim of a financial scam, or a loved one has an addiction or a gambling issue, or, something happens, there's a fire in the house, whatever it might be. Like, these might be the first time that we are having to engage with benefits or workplace benefits and services that we've never had to engage with before. So it's like still quite new for us. So we cover things like, we've just added unpaid care to the Money First Aid course, because there are millions, I forget the stat off the top of my head, but it's like 12,000 people become an unpaid carer. I might even want to say a day in the UK, like without realizing that they are, and therefore they're eligible for certain benefits. Financial scams are on the rise, and that's not just kind of our elderly grandparents who are victims. It's like all of us are now becoming like victims of financial scams. All sorts of these like things that are becoming more prevalent, that workplaces and individuals like perhaps haven't considered as being like a typical or common financial stress. But they are like becoming so, unfortunately.
We've definitely seen, from our perspective, we've definitely seen an increase, I'd say, over the last 2 years, of the number of people reaching out for debt consolidations. So where they are not quite at the point where they're unable to repay, they might not have like missing repayments, but they recognise that the number of outgoing repayments they've got is starting to get unmanageable. We've also had quite a lot of people approaching us who have got stuck in a salary drawdown situation. So there are some, the good reputable companies that would offer like salary advances. And the idea of those is that people would use it as a one-off in an emergency, but when it's not controlled, it can actually put people into this ongoing cycle of debt. We've seen lots of that. So my answer to that question, I would say, is debt, but debt getting to the point where it's unmanageable. Debt's a fact of life. We all, at some point, even if it's, your mortgage, your car, we majority of us have to take out credit. But I think when it gets unmanageable, and that's something that we have seen that is more common than other issues. I don't think we've got any more questions. No? Okay.
That's so great. That's like more questions than I've had on
Is it?
like this for a long time. So that's so cool that there's engagement like that. Thanks for asking them.
Yes, thank you everybody for that. And it is good, as Stacey said, to have such an engaged discussion. As promised, I did say at the beginning that all of you that made it to the end, there was something special. So any minute now in the chat, we're going to be dropping a link which will give you a discount on the Money First Aid course. I have spoken during the session about my own personal experience with the course, but if you visit the website, you can see other people so that, you don't just have to take it from me, but it's definitely worth looking at, whether it's for yourself or whether you're looking to implement that into your business. A massive, massive thank you to Stacey. Thank you for sharing your time, the wisdom, clearly very passionate about what you do. And thank you to everyone else for showing up. If anyone would like to learn more about Plain Saver, how could you not want to learn more about that? Or how you can support your organisation with payroll savings, financial well-being, financial resilience. We're going to pop another link in the chat, which is already there because I got beaten to it, where you can book in some time to speak to us. So thank you everybody so much for joining, and hopefully we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Stacey.